A lot of people think investing in real estate, I'm going to have to throw down like $200,000 to start with.
Just a lack of communication and a lack of education. We saw a huge disconnect between the broker world and new home sales.
Welcome to the Powered by Ground podcast, episode 1. I'm your host, Kevin Winkle. Today on the podcast, I will be joined with Powered by Ground founder, David Korniyenko. David has been a builder, a realtor, a serious source of information for the community. Powered by Ground started as an educational series, bringing information about the new construction industry to brokers and to investors in an attempt to bridge that knowledge gap to help people grow their wealth and serve their clients better. In today's conversation, we're going to go over a little bit of the state of the industry, some of the trends that we're seeing in new construction and in property development today in 2024, and a few tips for people that are wanting to get their feet wet in investing, how to grow your wealth the fastest. Make sure you stay tuned all the way to the end. We get into the juicy details right about 25 minutes into it. If this is your first time stopping by the channel, make sure and give us a subscribe, give us a like, and give us a comment. Let us know your thoughts on what we're talking about in the video and if you have any questions. And as usual, we've always got a way to connect with us in the description of the video below. Feel free to click that link, reach out, send us a call, send us a text, bang on a log, send a messenger pigeon, put up a smoke signal, just reach out and get in touch. We're here for you. So now back to the Powered by Ground podcast collaboration with Living in the PNW. Make sure you check out that YouTube channel if you haven't already, right here. Okay, cool. See you guys in the mix. Man, where to start? There's a lot to go over. This is the first podcast of the Powered by Ground podcast series. Super honored to be involved in this. Glad to be here and be the host. David, thanks for sitting with me today.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for inviting me and just being the host and setting this all up. Pretty excited. Thank you.
Yes, you're really welcome. I'm really excited to hear about this. So for the folks at home, a little bit of background, there's a series of educational courses, kind of workshops that are going on that David's been teaching that is bringing an area of knowledge that we just don't know about in the real estate industry. A lot of brokers and even, just the average everyday home buyer doesn't quite understand what's really going on in new construction right now. We've heard about shortages in supply of houses. We've heard about all sorts of problems with inventory and with there being enough affordable housing, let alone just enough housing in general. I mean, our inventory numbers are real low. And so David here has brought this whole series that really helps people to get better acquainted with the new construction process, with how homes are built, with how we go about buying new properties, how we build, how we develop. So it's an amazing bit of knowledge to bring to the table. So I'm super happy to be involved in this, because knowledge is power, right?
For sure.
So
the biggest thing, Kevin, is just new homes have been such a small sector of the overall real estate market.
Right.
In the last, I'd say 5 to 8 years, has grown into a bigger portion of the market share. So what I'm saying is nationally, it used to be, say, up to 10%. Now, I just spoke to a gentleman a couple of days ago and is at 25% nationally. Locally here, we're almost at a little bit even above national, about 30%. So when you have that much inventory coming into the market, education is key, right? And we saw that there's such a shortage of information about how do you take a client from A to Z and so forth, as on the broker side, so as on the consumer side. Just, a lot of more questions than answers to be found.
There is a lot of questions about that. I mean, I know when I was getting my start in real estate, they didn't even talk about new construction for the first few years. Myself, I come from a construction background, but I wasn't doing new development stuff. I was doing more remodels and private clients like that. And even within that, it's like a whole other world that's just not accessible to everybody else. So I guess that leads me to my first question for you is, what inspired you to create the Powered by Ground educational series for brokers?
So it's been in the works for a couple of years. It's not just like I woke up and I was like, we need to do something like this. But being in the industry all the way from the very beginning, I've been in the industry over 20 years. Just about 20 and going up north from there. But just looking at the whole market, the way things have been developing, even in our market here where national builders have been coming into our market, building more, consumers asking more questions, and just the flow of transactions, like I mentioned, going more into that direction. The more transactions that flow into that direction, the more questions people have. And being in the real estate industry, I talk to brokers, real estate builders, developers, everybody. And we saw a huge disconnect between the broker world and new home sales. There's just a lack of communication and a lack of education. I really like, the Mike Ferries and the Tom Ferries of the world who did really well educating the brokers and resale. And when I started to look at new homes, I was like, who's pioneering, the education, the scripts, the content, the formulas, the transaction styles? Nobody. It was just a silent ghost place. And I was like,
wow,
yeah, brokers need to be educated because brokers lead their customers into a transaction and through a transaction, and they help facilitate that. So this is where Powered by Ground, we're like, we're going to develop a curriculum, we're going to develop training, we're going to develop masterminds, we're going to develop an opportunity that the experience would be raised to another level instead of everybody just going on the fly.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge. And it was totally missing entirely. I'm studious and I came across what you're doing here, and that really hit me in some kind of way in seeing that the knowledge was opened up. But I was also looking at it from another perspective that we haven't touched on yet. And that is really in the world of wealth building. And as an investor, it's such a different kind of playing field now. You have your influencers that are talking about, well, really crumbs. It's just bottom feeder stuff. Most of the wholesaling or trying to buy someone else's equity here and there. Whereas the amount that an investor can grow their wealth and how rapidly with new construction as opposed to everything else that's being pushed out there, it's astounding.
Correct. And I mean, even zoning, right? Every time zoning changes, who are the ones to implement it? They're builders, developers, investors, right? They go into a market, the county changes the zoning. It's not homeowners who build that up. It's always the investors, the builders, the developers that go in and are like, hey, we can implement this or so forth. And they start to build out what the zoning regulations have applied, like the whole EDU and all of these new laws that are coming to Washington, Oregon, and so forth.
Right. Now, I know a lot of people think, investing in real estate, I'm going to have to throw down like $200,000 to start with. Right. But that's not always the scenario in this kind of situation.
Yes, that's true. I think there's a lot of strategy that's involved in new home sales and financing as well. So there's definitely other window in. We see a lot of private and public sector involved in helping facilitate new home sale transactions and financing that, even local banks also.
Yeah, they seem to be really into it, and that's been pretty cool to find out after talking with local banks. You always think, oh, I'm trying to get permission, or I have to go and beg, borrow, and plead, because that's what you see on TV. But it's surprising how much they're actually really willing to get behind these development projects.
For sure. And I mean, when you look at mobility of the market, right? When market expands, everybody's trying to figure out how to make money on that. So our banks, everybody is looking how to get compensated for their service. And that's where we come back to brokers also. We believe that brokers, as good sales representative, as good representative of their clients, they need to be equipped in knowledge about new home sales, the process, the transaction, time frames, zoning, new neighborhoods, just like we're doing spotlight communities. This is where everything is going, right? New shopping centers, all of this. And as people who lead their clients, we should know where to lead them and what's happening in every zip code or every county or every city as development process go forward.
Absolutely. So can you tell me a little bit, and the folks at home, I know a little bit more than they do, but can you tell us a little bit kind of about your background with home building and how it led to being a builder and realtor and developer and all that? Where'd you start?
Absolutely. So my dad was my dad grew up in the business world, and he actually owned his own framing company here locally. And I grew up in talking about real estate, about construction, about framing, then visiting a lot of his job sites, then getting summer jobs, just framing or bringing in, carrying a tool nail bag and just getting involved with my hands. And I got really excited. And then when I was turning 18, I was like, what do I do? And I was like, what, I'm going to challenge myself and go into real estate. Actually, what happened is I met one of the investors in the field and in one of our communities that we're framing in. I started talking. He's like, you should go into real estate. So I was like, great, I'll go into real estate. So I got my real estate license, and I actually went to him and I told him who's the best person in town to be trained and coached by. And he's like, there's this great office. It was a Remax office here. And he's like, great DB there, designated broker. They'll treat you well. They'll take care of you. And that's where I had an opportunity to go to the office. I remember I sat down just like in a setting type of like this. I had an interview with the DB, and she looked at me and she's like, "You'll do fine." And I had no idea what I was doing. I was 18 years old, straight out of high school. Just finished my summer job with my dad, and because I turned 18 in the fall, and I got my license and started going to the office every day. The atmosphere, and this is why we call about Powered by Ground. We believe in cultivation. Cultivation of something helps you propel forward. So me growing up in a construction background and having that as a teen, as a youth, it definitely cultivated something in me to keep moving forward in this direction.
Yeah. It sounds like you didn't exactly trade in your tool bags for an office job all the way. Am I right? You still got some things going on.
Yeah,
in that
absolutely.
world.
So when I turned 18, got my license, went into real estate. I kind of stopped doing framing and just being involved in construction, but focused on sales. And that's where I understood that sales has such a big part in facilitating everything else. You know, if the salesperson doesn't sell the house, the framer is not going to build another home. If the salesperson does not facilitate the sale, nobody else is going to, build the next community next. So I started to understand this whole process of the salesperson. And year over year, that started to build up. But then in about 4 years into my career, I started to learn how to facilitate new home sales transaction between investors, developers, builders, and that background in construction helped me understand when doing walkthroughs with clients and so forth. So yeah, one thing builds up on another for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. So today you're still building.
We're always active building because I say you have to be in the market to know what's going on in the market. So when we consult people or investors or builders, developers that we service, we ourselves want to be involved in the market.
Sure.
So I want to know what the troubles, new energy laws, new anything that comes through, we are going through the same process as our clients. So we get to go through the same emotions and roller coasters.
Gotcha. So in the past few years, how many homes have you been involved with building, let alone?
So directly right now, we oversee between like 40 to 60 homes a year. Indirectly, it's been more depending on how we've been involved and how we've been overlapping in different ventures. So yeah, I would say give or take, we're involved in about bringing 40 to 60 homes to the market every year.
Wow, that's actually a pretty good number. That takes a lot of work.
Yes. It is a lot of work, but keeps us in the market and allows us to, especially like the training, to train brokers and everybody in the current state where we're at right now.
Absolutely, right? Because we got to get prepared for the growth.
Correct.
Because there's no question we have a housing shortage.
Yes.
I was looking at numbers the other day, and in I think it was 2017, we had 14 months of inventory, which for those of you who don't know, an inventory number means if nothing new came on the market today, then that means it would have taken 14 months to sell all the homes that were for sale at the time. At the moment, as we're speaking in September 2024, we've got about 3 months of inventory, which is like this close to crisis if you ask me. I mean, it's real short, and it keeps getting shorter because we build families quicker than we build houses. So, and this is a nationwide thing. They'll be talking about it at the presidential debate that's supposed to get shot later tonight. I'm sure this will come out way after that. There's a lot of conversation about that and how to deal with this affordable housing crisis that there also is. So that's really cool that there is a way for people to get kind of ahead of it. Like as a country, if we're going to build our way out of this mess, they say we can't build our way out of it, but we have no choice. We have to build our way out of it. And so this is pretty cool that you put together some educational content to pass on and help empower these people.
Yeah, I mean, I think empowerment is part of our mission and vision, is to empower brokers as they empower their clients in understanding about new homes, how communities are built, and talking about time frames. Absolutely. It takes only about 2 to 3 years just to develop and get dirt ready to go, not talking about another 12 months to get homes up. So absolutely, we have a shortage of inventory, but the ramp time is not going to be overnight. It does take time to build up that inventory. And we know where rates are at and everything right now in the economy. People are slower to move, slower to sell, slower to give up 2% interest rates, and more just moving in the direction of just buying new. And new will always be there. I mean, last recession, however you want to spin it, people were always building homes. They always build their final home. They always built a home for their family estate. People are always building. I travel many places over the country, even to vacation in Hawaii. I go there 2-3 years, there's new homes all over the place. So people will never stop building. It's part of our nature to always build.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So that's so interesting. That's something that's so close to our nature to build and grow and expand. How that knowledge has kind of been kept away. Like going through high school and stuff, they're not really teaching you.
No.
There's now a few programs at a couple high schools
Correct.
that are teaching more of the trades and like how to build and why and stuff like that. But it seems like there should be a lot more. Yeah, across the board. People should understand things about the building materials that they're putting into their houses and the environmental impact of those materials.
Exactly.
Not just on the environment as a whole, but maybe the half-life of those materials on the people that are living inside of it after time. I mean, look at lead paint. Like, people need to know more about that.
And I agree, in new home sales, you get that opportunity in the journey. And when you just buy resale, you just buy what's there, right? But when you're buying a new home, you're actually exposed to that process, right? The foundation, the excavation, the wiring, the rough-ins, the windows, the HVAC. So even the client being part of that, I mean, they're getting educated while their home is being built, whether by a local builder or a national builder. And I think the brokers just need to be more and more involved in the process themselves, because one of our jobs is to lead our clients. And how do we lead if we don't know where we're going or how this whole thing is being put together? Part of our education, we talk about it's the manufacturing of a home. If you just think about manufacturing as a process, there's a beginning point and then there's an end point, right, to manufacture. When things eventually get packaged, they go to the consumer, to the warehouse. The same thing kind of happens with building a home. It takes about 45 steps, and it's one thing after another that gets put together, inspected, re-inspected by the county, the city, or third-party inspectors, and that the house keeps being put back together till everything's fully functional and operable inside the home.
Totally. Something I love about that process is that it's specific, it's trackable, it's measurable. There's not a lot of woo-woo in it. There might be some market concerns that affect one way or another, but where people are trying to figure out how to grow their wealth and how to stabilize within their community. Like, this is very much a new construction, and the call for it right now is very much opportunity, right? Where we can put our intention into that process and really like build something better for down the line for ourselves, for our families, for those around us.
Absolutely. So in Powered by Ground, we did create a curriculum of 7 steps, and we go through every single step and kind of unfold the process and the people involved in the process. And we call it kind of the community setting, right? So once you kind of enter into the new home community, like Builders Industry Association, BIA, it's a whole network of people. When you enter into that network, you slowly, by rubbing off other people, you slowly start to understand concept and how this works and how that works. And that's what our goal is in Powered by Ground, through this education curriculum, through a community setting, through networking. All of that eventually has its own play on the broker community and develops. And it's amazing, just since we've been up and running, how many brokers, by putting their attention to this with the curriculum, the education, and the community, have done such a better job representing their clients in the industry.
Yeah, I could only imagine. I mean, I know as brokers, my job is to protect my clients' money and to make them as much of it as possible.
Correct.
That is my job, is to help them grow their money. So the more that I've learned about how to do that with new construction, instead of just kind of sifting through the leftovers of new construction of yesteryear, I've really been able to help people to get sort of a bigger picture.
Absolutely.
And so I see there's a call for that, like not just for us brokers, but also for my clients. They need to know more about the process to be able to get tapped in with it. And for my investor clients, really, there's, everyone wants to tell you to trade in the stock market. You'll lose your shirt, and at best you'll have smaller gains. Whereas in real estate, if you pay to have something developed, you have the bank involved with you the whole way. There's a big chunk of capital sitting on the other side. and there's not a lot of talk about that. So as far as moving forward with not just agents but also investors and other people within the realm, like how do you see getting this information to them? How can they interact, and how can we help people?
I think everybody that's involved in new home sale community is going to get involved with the greater scale with Powered by Ground. And one of our slogans is being trained by the professionals in the industry. So our goal is to bring HVAC professionals, plumber professionals, developers, investors, everybody who has been involved in new homes to this podcast. And through this podcast and through our YouTube channels, people can have more exposure to this information. It will slowly sink in on them the more they're exposed to it. So our goal is to bring in the professionals to this podcast, have a sit down with one of them, allow them to talk about product, processes, civil engineering, financing, all of these, so that our audience and people in the network and the community can just learn better and be better informed about all the processes. So for example, when zoning changes every 5 years, all the brokers would be so much more attentive now to what the zoning laws are. Why? Well, because in 5 years, that's the product that'll come to the market, and then the brokers have to sell that, right? Like, we talk a lot about this. You know, we didn't have townhomes. Now we have townhomes. We didn't have a huge condo, community. Now we do. Why? Because all that was brought in through the new home sector. That was not brought in through resale. But then we talk to the brokers and we say, well, it's so good to be informed about the new communities, because in 5 years, an average person lives in a home between 5 to 8 years. It'd be so good if you knew a little bit about the community when it comes to resale, because that knowledge that you built up year over year about that community in 3 to 5 years, when people, I've seen that our homes, resold so many times, in the community. And if brokers have knowledge about communities, they'll be so much more professional when it comes to resale also. So new home sector, you have to have a finger and pulse on that market if you're really associated in the real estate, whether it's investing, building, developing, or brokerage.
Right, absolutely. And when it comes to that new home sector, not all builders are created equal, right? Everyone is really different, though.
Absolutely.
Most folks listening to this right now, unless they are a builder or have dealt with a ton of them, they don't really understand what those differences really are. Can you speak a little bit to the difference of like the prefab versus the buy in the plan and then alter it versus spec built?
So I'll say first it goes between national and local builder. A national builder means they're national. That means they build in many markets across the nation. And then you have your local builder. Our market right now is probably split 50-50. We have probably 50% national builders and 50% local builders.
Wow.
Then a handful of the local builders, they split between, specs, which you're talking about, and then pre-sale. Pre-sale is where the client is involved in the beginning of the phase all the way to the end. Spec is where the builder's involved and the client only comes almost towards the later end of the building process, meaning the builder chooses everything from design, from color choices, from flooring, and then the client usually either comes in at the very later part or just buys the finished product. The national builders, some of them run the same program where you can come in, but it's more like, I would say, the McDonald's version, where you have just the menus. You have option 1, 2, or 3, or 4, and that's it. And that's how they put their house together. So they'll have a subdivision, say, of 20 homes. They pick out, 2 floor plans that would mismatch between lot sizes, maybe a third or a fourth one. Then they'll pick up their packages, and then you just click, and that's it. And they put your house together. So that's more on the national scale. They're very streamlined processing compared to the local guys, where I think you can get, we call it semi-custom. So you can definitely get more custom. And then on the local guys, each builder, whether it's a business where they're building 100 homes or whether they're building 5 homes, you could see their fingerprint within the process of their whole business. You look at one guy, he's building more like traditional style. Another guy is building more modern style. Another guy likes really semi-modern. And you could sense that depending on, let's say the artistic taste of the owner of the company.
Gotcha. So now we're seeing some shifts even with those builders because of a different sort of need.
Correct.
Right? Like multi-generational.
Correct.
For instance.
Yes.
So how are you seeing these builders respond to the different needs of, what the community has right now?
The additional dwelling unit or multi-gen or DADU, what they call in Seattle, where you're allowing more than one unit on a lot. Yeah, that I think the county and the city and the state are trying to figure out the issue of housing. So they're putting in place all of these laws. I think that ADU is doing really well. It's where you have a house plus an ADU, whether attached or detached, on one tax lot. So you can't sell them separately, but you sell them all as one package. So it's like a duplex, but not really. The ADU portions usually 50% less than the house. It used to be like on acreages where people built houses and then like a mother-in-law suite type of a deal. But this is, on a single family city lot. That is answering it's helping assist on that concern of housing. It definitely is. And we see a lot of national builders adopting the ADU and a lot of local builders adopting the ADU. From an investment standpoint, it makes sense. From a family standpoint, it makes sense. From elderly parents living with their kids, it makes sense. So there's a lot of good resolutions from that concept of build.
Definitely. Yeah. It seems like they're shifting and really kind of responding to what the market calls for.
Correct.
Do you see the local builders adapting quicker, or is it kind of everybody's jumping in?
I think everybody's slowly jumping in. I think the ADU's been around for like 2 or 3 years, but it's always slow. But then the market gets used to it. You get comps, you get appraisers, you get resale value out of it, and I think eventually momentum will grow.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. So I'm going to take a quick left turn, and I want to ask you, if someone was stepping into real estate investing and maybe they had some equity built up or had a little bit of money to work with, what are some of the avenues that you see people making more money in at the moment than others?
So I'd say where the market complements investors now is more long-term holding. So not necessarily on the short-term holding. I think it's the long-term holding. So you should, if you're anticipating to invest in real estate, you should expect to hold for at least 5 years right now. Other guys who are investing into other sectors of real estate investing, they're actually shooting for 5 to 10 years. So anything that you're willing to hold for 5 to 10 years is worth investing to.
Gotcha.
Because they believe that the rates will eventually come down, which will complement, the overall projection of real estate.
So what areas of investing are you really seeing growth in, right? Is it in more single families with extra units?
The investors who buy single family residentials, it's those who like the standalone. Guys with bigger capital like the higher density stuff. So let's say people who have less capital usually buy the house with the ADU concept, or we've seen a lot of smaller investors buy homes and build ADUs on them. And that's how they're building equity inside of their home. Bigger capital groups, they just like higher density and like to be building all in one place. So it's all about how big of a capital flow and capital group you want to be.
Right. So it takes a lot more capital up front to build the bigger.
I mean, the guys who are just starting, I have a lot of family and friends and subcontractors that always ask about real estate investing. And I go, just buy a home with a bigger lot, because that's where the future is going. You can probably build one ADU or two ADUs. You can pull on equity out of your home, build that, refi it, because now you have two sources of income paying for one debt of a loan pool. So that will allow you, because that's where the zoning is going. So I'll say in the short term, I mean, you're squeezing the potential out of a single lot that's a SFR with a bigger lot to build those additional dwelling units.
The SFR meaning single family rental.
Single family residential, correct. And moving it into the area of building ADUs. If you're looking for bigger capital flow, yes, guys are buying, fourplexes, triplexes, bigger pools, and it's all long term. Nothing's for short term right now. It's about 5 to 10 year growth for holding.
Are there a lot of builders who are doing the multi-family, or are they all trying to stick to single? What's the trend?
I think the trend is moving SFR plus multifamily. Correct.
Okay.
Locally here, if you look at bigger metro areas, so it's all about high density. So it's all about stacking as many units as you can as small of a square footage of a lot possible. So I think our area is growing into a metro area. So we'll see more of that happening for sure. So builders, they will diversify their portfolio of what they build. So they used to build single family residentials. Now they're going to build single family with ADUs. That is going to be single family residentials, ADUs, and then multifamily. And I'm seeing a lot of builders locally move into that direction. Nationals won't make that swap, but the local guys are making that transition for sure.
Right. So a lot more of like
moving into that progression as the zoning is more into that progression.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
The brokers, and that's what I'm saying, the brokers have to move in that progression also. Right now, we sell a lot of SFRs. 5 years from today, we're going to be selling a lot of SFRs with ADUs. 10 years from today, we're going to be selling a lot of multifamily SFRs with ADUs. So, we got to kind of go where the zoning, where the city wants to develop and transform it into whatever they're working at.
So let's say someone has a single family rental. Maybe they live in it, or maybe they've just acquired it, and they want to follow this strategy. What are the steps that they would go through to get the extra development done on their property, and then what kind of return on investment could they expect?
So the ROI formula will definitely change per case by case, so we can help run all of that. But I would say anything that has a home with a bigger lot, look at your options to build an ADU. Even a 500 square foot, 800 square foot, housing shortage is going to be a question. Like when you go into like a metro market, like I was down in San Francisco a couple of years ago, and I was walking the streets. People are renting out their garages, right? They convert their garages into living space and they rent it out. Why? Because there's just a shortage of housing, and that's what people do. They start to become creative. So anything with a bigger lot, SFR with a bigger lot, will always give you opportunity. And the city doesn't want to maybe spend so much money on infrastructure improvement to expand the city, so they're willing to allow you to tap into the infrastructure that's already there, sewer, water, lateral, and so forth, so we can build more houses within the area that we have, to increase density.
Right, and that's changes that recently kind of came into play through Bill 2001, the middle housing laws. The cities nationwide, everywhere, their hand is being forced, where they would only let you build so much on a lot. Now they have to let you expand and grow more. So every time we get this little kind of a let up on the rules, that is an opportunity to just
yes, it's a huge opportunity.
Totally. So there's a lot of that out in the market right now.
Correct.
Yeah. If you want to get tapped in with more information about development in your local market, in the market we're in Southwest Washington, Portland metro area, Seattle to Eugene, everything in between, reach on out to us and we'll get you in touch with somebody in your market who is the person to grow with. Before we wrap up today, is there anything, David, you want to tell them?
I just want to say thank you, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen with Powered by Ground. And the viewers out there, get educated in new home sales. It's not going anywhere. It's just this sector is going to grow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Everybody watching right now, if you like this content, you've enjoyed what it is that we're talking about, make sure you hit the subscribe button right now. We will continue to produce videos regularly, bringing information like this to you. Make sure you check out the link in the details below in the video description. You can reach out to us there, send us a call, send us an email, shoot us a text, bang on a log, days, nights, evenings, weekends. We're here for you to get your questions answered. So until next time, we'll see you then.